Welcome, the anointed ones. Some people are so desperate to destroy a chosen one, they forget God reads every group chat too. Let that sit for a second. You thought the attacks were over. You thought the lies were their final move. But what if I told you? One of your biggest attackers is currently battling a sickness so dark, so secret, and so spiritually inflicted. They're literally rotting from the inside out and doing everything in their power to hide it from the world. Because they know if people ever found out what they're dealing with, questions would start flying. Questions like, why did their health start failing right after they tried to ruin yours? Why are they suddenly isolated, paranoid, and losing weight like they're running from a ghost? Or the real kicker, how did the strongest one in the circle become the most fragile behind closed doors? And here's a chilling fact for you. Studies have shown that psychological stress combined with deep guilt and spiritual unrest can literally trigger fatal diseases like cancer, autoimmune disorders, and neurodegenerative decline. Translation: you can't violate a divine soul and expect to stay whole. See, chosen ones, this isn't just karma. This is a full-blown spiritual infection manifesting as a medical crisis, one they can't pray away, party away, or pretend away. And the worst part, they know it's linked to you. So grab your tea, your journal, or your petty grin, because by the end of this video, you're going to understand why one of your worst enemies is now fighting for their life in silence, and why divine justice doesn't always knock. Sometimes it breaks the door off the hinges. Let's get into it. Number 1. Their body is collapsing under the weight of the energy they threw at you. They thought they could attack you and walk away untouched. But what they didn't understand is that spiritual laws don't play favorites. When someone intentionally targets a soul that's been divinely chosen, whether through gossip, witchcraft, betrayal, or manipulation, they aren't just messing with a person. They're messing with a sacred assignment. That kind of violation doesn't disappear into the air. It goes somewhere, it stores up, it accumulates, and eventually, it comes back. The energy they aimed at you, the anxiety they wanted you to live in, the confusion they tried to stir in your mind, the emotional collapse they prayed would destroy you. It didn't disappear. It reversed. And now, their own body is starting to show signs of that dark exchange. They're tired for no reason, in pain that doctors can't quite name, waking up in cold sweats, skin changing, weight fluctuating, systems shutting down slowly while they're still smiling in public. On the outside, they're holding it together, but behind closed doors, their body is collapsing under the very energy they conjured for you. They became the grave they dug for you. That's the part they don't want anyone to know. While they were celebrating your downfall, their cells were mutating. While they were laughing at your tears, their nervous system was breaking down. And what makes it worse? They know exactly when it started. They know the moment they crossed the line. They know it wasn't coincidence. But they'll never admit it, because admitting it would mean confessing that you were never the villain in the first place. It would mean admitting they touched something holy without permission. Now they're trying to treat it like a regular illness. Vitamins, doctors, prayers, holistic remedies, but nothing is working. Because this sickness isn't in their blood, it's in their spirit. And until they confess the root, no medicine on earth will work. They're not just sick, they're spiritually infected, and their body is telling the truth their mouth never will. Number 2, they're dying in silence. Because public shame is a bigger fear than death. They're dying in silence because they're more afraid of public shame than they are of death itself. That's the twisted reality they're living in now. This person, the one who went out of their way to attack you, can't even cry for help. Not because no one would listen, but because they've spent so long pretending to be untouchable. They told so many lies about you. They painted themselves as the strong one, the honest one, the victim. So how could they now explain that they're falling apart? They're sick, physically, emotionally, spiritually, but pride has them locked in a prison they built with their own words. They would rather suffer in silence than be exposed. They would rather slowly decay behind the scenes than admit they're being punished for what they did to you. That's how deep their ego runs. They're choking on secrets but still trying to convince people that everything is fine. They're showing up to events, smiling, taking pictures, posting like nothing's wrong. All while their body is breaking down and their mind is barely holding on. Their health is deteriorating, but they're keeping it quiet because the shame of being found out is heavier than the sickness itself. They know if they speak up, it would lead to questions they can't afford to answer. Questions like, why now? What caused this? How did things get so bad? And deep down, they know the truth would spill out. They know people would connect the dots, how their downfall began right after they tried to destroy someone who never fought back. And that kind of exposure is something they can't handle. So they stay quiet. They isolate. They suffer behind fake smiles and forced conversations. And the irony? The same voice they used to tear you down is the voice they now refuse to use to save themselves. Pride won't let them admit the truth, that hurting a chosen one came with a price tag their soul can't afford. Number 3, their sickness is a manifestation of unrepented evil. This sickness didn't just show up one day out of nowhere. It's not bad luck, bad genes, or some random twist of fate. It's a physical reaction to spiritual corruption. The truth is, their body is now carrying the weight of things they never repented for. This isn't just a health issue. It's the consequence of choosing to walk in darkness and refusing to turn around when there was still time. What they did to you wasn't petty. It wasn't just drama. It was calculated, intentional, and evil. They went out of their way to harm someone who never wronged them, someone who actually carried light. And when you violate someone who's covered, chosen, and divinely protected, you don't just damage their peace, you place a curse on yourself. That energy has to go somewhere, and when it can't land on you, it returns to the one who sent it, this time with more weight than it left with. Their illness is spiritual residue. Every betrayal, every lie, every manipulative move created a toxic imprint in their spirit, and because they never owned up to it, because they never confessed it, apologized, or made it right, it began to rot inside them. The body listens to the soul, and when the soul is full of venom, the body eventually shows symptoms. This is why the treatments aren't working. They're trying to cure what can't be fixed by pills. You can't treat spiritual sickness with modern medicine. You can numb it. You can disguise it. You can delay it. But you cannot heal what you refuse to acknowledge, and they know it. Somewhere deep in their gut, they know their suffering isn't random. They know it's connected to what they did and who they did it to. They're living proof that unrepented evil doesn't fade with time. It just evolves. It becomes disease, disorder, dysfunction. And no amount of denial can stop a soul from screaming when it's weighed down by what it was never meant to carry. That's not karma. That's the body revealing what the spirit's been hiding. Number 4, they know you're protected, and it's killing them faster. They've thrown everything they had at you, manipulation, lies, gossip, even spiritual attacks, and watched in confusion as none of it landed. You didn't fold, you didn't fall apart. In fact, you got stronger. And now that truth is doing something to them that nothing else ever could. It's eating them alive, not just mentally or emotionally, but physically. Their health is declining faster than even they expected, and it's tied directly to the rage they feel from seeing you untouched. They know you're protected. They've come to terms with it in the worst way, by witnessing it firsthand. They've seen you walk through chaos with peace, while their own world keeps unraveling. It's a twisted kind of torment. It's not just that you survived, it's that you're thriving, glowing, laughing, elevating while they're quietly falling apart. And because they know their attacks didn't work, something in them has snapped. It's not guilt that's making them sick. It's helplessness. It's that deep, bitter realization that they have no power over you. They tried to play God in your life, and now they're watching the real God show up for you over and over, publicly and consistently. That's driving them mad. It's speeding up the stress in their body, triggering diseases that were dormant, causing their immune system to crash under the pressure of jealousy, anger, and confusion. Every time you post a smile, walk with confidence, or speak from your healed place, it's like a reminder that they failed. And failure for someone who feeds off control is unbearable. Their spirit is crushed because the one thing they thought they could destroy became the one thing they can't even touch. That kind of emotional collapse doesn't stay in the mind. It spreads. Their heart rate, their blood pressure, their sleep, their digestion, everything is out of sync because peace lives with you and punishment lives with them. They're not just watching you, they're watching their own body betray them every day, all because your divine covering proved to be stronger than their attacks. And they know it. That truth is the slow death they can't escape. Number 5. They're hiding their condition from their circle because they lied about you first. They can't come clean about their condition because doing so would unravel everything they built their fake image on. They spent so much time and energy convincing people that you were the problem, that you were toxic, that being connected to you brought chaos, misfortune, and bad energy. They whispered about your dark aura, your bad karma, and warned others to stay away like you were some kind of disease. They played the victim so convincingly that their circle believed it. Some even joined in. But now the tables have turned, and not quietly. Their health is declining, their energy is gone. Their body is fighting something they can't explain away. And the people closest to them are starting to notice. The missed calls, the weight loss, the pale skin, the doctor visits, the silence. But they refuse to talk about it, because if they admit what's going on, someone will ask why. And they can't answer that without exposing the whole performance. How do you explain that the person you swore was cursed is now healthy, glowing, and at peace, while you're falling apart? How do you admit that the one you labeled as dangerous is actually divinely protected, and that you're now the one being swallowed by darkness? You can't. Not without admitting you lied. Not without confessing you tried to destroy someone who never touched you. So they suffer in silence. They fake wellness in the group chats. They keep their medical appointments secret. They pretend it's stress or just a cold. But deep down, they know the truth. They are paying for the narrative they spun. Their pride won't let them reach out. Their ego won't let them confess. Because to tell the truth would mean giving up the false power they gained from slandering you. And they're not ready for that. So they suffer alone, trapped by the same lies that once gave them popularity. The mask they wore to ruin your name is now suffocating them. And no one in their circle even knows they're gasping for air. Number 6. Their immune system is attacking them the same way they attacked you. What they did to you wasn't just an emotional betrayal. It was a spiritual assault. And now that energy has echoed back, not in a way they expected, but in the most personal, inescapable way possible. Through their own immune system turning against them. This isn't just illness. It's poetic justice written in the language of biology. They broke spiritual law when they came after you. They moved with envy, malice, and intentional harm, launching attacks that went beyond normal human conflict. You weren't just another person. They knew there was something sacred on your life, and still they aimed to destroy it. Now their body is repeating that same betrayal internally. Their immune system, which was designed to protect them, has started misfiring, mistaking healthy cells for threats, attacking their joints, their skin, their organs. The same way they mistook your light for a threat and went to war against it, their body is now going to war against itself. Autoimmune disease is one of the most symbolic forms of sickness. It doesn't come from outside. It's an internal rebellion. And that's exactly what's happening inside them. There is a war within, and it mirrors the spiritual war they tried to start with you. They tried to make you doubt yourself. They tried to tear you down piece by piece. Now their body is doing the same thing to them, slowly, painfully, silently. Doctors can't explain why it started. Treatments only provide temporary relief. Nothing is really stopping it because this isn't just medical. It's spiritual decay showing up in physical form. They created division in your life. Now their body is divided. They sowed destruction. Now they're the ones being destroyed from the inside out. It's not random. It's not unfair. It's reflective. Their sickness is the perfect mirror of the chaos they tried to plant in your life. And the most terrifying part, there's no medicine for that kind of curse, only repentance. But their pride won't allow it, so their body continues to carry out what their spirit began. Number 7. They're haunted by night terrors because their spirit is convicted, not just their flesh. They're not just losing sleep, they're being tormented by the weight of what they did. This isn't just restlessness or a bad night here and there. These are night terrors that come like spiritual court sessions. Every time they close their eyes, they're dragged into dream states that feel more real than waking life. They see faces they tried to forget, hear voices they swore they silenced, and your face, it keeps showing up, not out of guilt alone, but because their spirit knows it violated something sacred. This isn't insomnia, this is conviction on a soul-deep level. While the body tries to rest, the spirit is being summoned to answer for crimes it hasn't repented for. That's why they wake up gasping. That's why they can't sleep for more than a few hours without a jolt of panic hitting them like a tidal wave. They're not being attacked in their sleep, they're being confronted. There's a difference. Attacks come from outside. This is internal judgment rising up from the depths of their own choices. Every lie they told about you echoes back in those dreams. Every act of sabotage replays, not from their perspective, but from yours. They're being forced to feel the pain they caused, and their ego can't block it in the dream world. There's no filter, no mask, no performance, just raw truth. They try to pray now, but the prayers feel cold, powerless. They light candles, burn sage, try spiritual cleanses. But nothing works because nothing they're doing addresses the real issue, unrepented evil. Their soul is on trial every night, and the judgment isn't coming from some outside force trying to harm them, it's coming from within. Their own spirit is forcing them to relive what they ran from. And that's the scariest part. They're not afraid of demons. They're afraid of truth, because the nightmares aren't random. They're justice. Their sleep is no longer a place of rest. It's become a courtroom, and they show up guilty every time. Number 8. They tried to trade your destiny for temporary power, and got a lifelong curse instead. They weren't just jealous of you. They wanted to be you, but not in a flattering, harmless way. They wanted your calling without your character, your favor without your foundation, your spotlight without your scars. So they did something dark, something desperate. They tried to cut a spiritual corner. They made a trade in the unseen, one that cost them far more than they understood. What they did wasn't just betrayal. It was a spiritual transaction. They slandered your name, blocked your opportunities, and attempted to steal your voice, all in hopes that they could somehow step into your position. They tried to hijack your destiny by making backdoor deals, speaking curses over your life, and aligning with forces that promised elevation in exchange for your fall. But what they didn't realize is that real destiny can't be stolen. It's encoded in your soul, not just your situation. The fine print of that spiritual exchange was brutal. They didn't just fail to take what was yours, they absorbed everything you had to survive. The pain, the pressure, the isolation, the internal war you had to fight for years just to stay sane. The rejection that almost crushed you, all of it transferred to them like spiritual residue. They thought they were going to walk in your crown. Instead, they're drowning in your cross. They gained nothing. Their name isn't celebrated. Their influence isn't growing. The power they thought they'd gain slipped through their fingers the moment they invoked your downfall. And now they're stuck with a curse they can't reverse. A life they no longer recognize. A soul under judgment. They carry a sickness that doesn't just hurt, it lingers. It multiplies. It follows them everywhere they go, because what they touched wasn't just a person. It was divine property. They didn't just try to sabotage you. They tried to swap roles with you in the spiritual realm. But destiny doesn't play dress-up, and now they're wearing a life that was never meant for them. A cursed life they can't remove because they signed the deal with deception and sealed it with pride. Number 9. Their doctors can't diagnose what's happening because it's not on a chart. They've been poked, scanned, tested, and referred. One doctor after another has given them the same confused look. The blood work's a mess, but there's no clear cause. The symptoms are real: pain, fatigue, swelling, insomnia. But nothing adds up. So they slap a vague label on it: autoimmune disorder, idiopathic inflammation, chronic fatigue syndrome. In other words, we see something's wrong, but we don't know why. But deep down, they know why. Their body is breaking down, not from disease in the traditional sense, but from spiritual disorder. This isn't just physical, it's metaphysical. What they did wasn't just betrayal, it was a direct violation of spiritual law. They meddled with sacred things, your purpose, your peace, your protection, and there's a price for that. What they triggered can't be seen under a microscope. It doesn't show up on an X-ray or in a scan because it's not coming from outside, it's coming from the inside out. Every symptom they feel is a reflection of the energy they sent out. Their hands shook when they tried to destroy you. Their heart races when they hear your name. Their chest tightens because truth lives where they buried lies. The inflammation isn't random, it's spiritual fire burning in a body that housed deception. Their nervous system is overloaded because it's being forced to carry a burden it was never built to hold, the weight of falsehood, envy, and sabotage. Doctors treat the body, but the soul is screaming, and no prescription touches that. They leave every appointment with more questions and less hope. Deep inside, they know they're not just sick, they're being judged. They crossed a line with someone covered, someone chosen, someone divine, and now their system is short-circuiting. They can't speak it out loud. How do you tell a doctor that your body is reacting to a spiritual contract you never should have made? So they suffer in silence, misdiagnosed and misunderstood. But the real diagnosis isn't missing. It's just not written on paper. It's written in consequence. Number 10. Their families suspect something, but they're too ashamed to ask for help. The people closest to them are starting to notice something's off. Their light is dimmer. Their posture is heavier. They move like they're dragging an invisible weight. They laugh less, avoid eye contact more. Even their voice sounds distant, like it's being spoken through a fog. Their family and friends don't know the full story, but they can feel it in their gut. Something's wrong, deeply wrong. But every time someone brings it up, they deflect, change the subject, or lash out. They don't want help. Not because they're too strong, but because they're too ashamed. Asking for help would mean admitting they're not the person they pretended to be. It would mean acknowledging that the story they told about you, that you were unstable, cursed, dramatic, or dangerous, was a complete fabrication. They built their reputation on making you look like the problem. They painted themselves as the peacemaker, the victim, the one who had to cut you off for their own good, and the people around them bought it. But now, they're the ones falling apart, and they can't explain why without exposing everything. They're not just sick, they're spiritually infected, and they know that if they open their mouth and try to tell the truth, the dam will break. Every lie, every smear, every twisted narrative they use to build their image would crumble. Their pride won't allow that, so they choose silence. They isolate. They cancel plans. They pull away from even the people who love them, because they're terrified of the one question they can't answer honestly. What's really going on? Their family feels the distance but can't name it. Their friends sense the change but don't know where it started. And they sit in rooms full of people while feeling like they're dying alone. Not because there's no one to turn to, but because telling the truth would cost them the illusion they fought so hard to protect. So they suffer quietly, hoping no one presses too hard, hoping their body holds up just long enough to keep the mask from slipping. But the mask is cracking, and the silence is starting to scream. Number 11. Their health declined the moment you walked away in power. The truth they never saw coming is this: you weren't the one depending on them, they were depending on you. But not in the way people depend on someone out of love or support. They were feeding off your pain like a parasite. Your confusion gave them control. Your heartbreak gave them energy. Your stuckness kept them elevated. The chaos they created in your life wasn't random, it was deliberate. They knew exactly how to pull your strings, drain your spirit, and keep you second-guessing your worth. Because as long as you were low, they felt high. But the moment you walked away, not broken but empowered, their world started to fall apart. And not in a metaphorical way. Their body, their mind, their energy, it all began to wither, because your struggle was their fuel. They thrived off your desperation, your need for validation, your trauma cycles. They were never stronger than you. They just stayed close enough to siphon your strength while keeping you weak. When you finally said, enough, and backed away. They weren't just shocked. They were cut off from the only source of power they had. You weren't just a victim to them. You were a lifeline. They mistook your vulnerability for weakness, when in fact it was sacred power trying to heal through love. But they never wanted healing. They wanted dominance. And when they lost access to your life, they lost access to the power they didn't know they were borrowing. That's why their health took a sharp turn, why they started aging faster, why their energy disappeared, why even their confidence began to erode. Your exit wasn't just a boundary, it was spiritual surgery. You removed the cord they latched onto, and without your energy to feed off, their bodies started reflecting the truth of who they really are. Weak without the illusion of control. They needed your struggle to survive, and when you rose into your purpose, they were left with their own emptiness, and it's killing them slowly but undeniably. Number 12. They were warned in the spirit realm and ignored it. Before their body ever showed a single symptom, their spirit was already being called out. Warnings came, not once, not twice, but repeatedly, in dreams that shook them, in conversations that seemed oddly timed, in signs that stood out so clearly they couldn't call it coincidence. They heard whispers in their soul telling them to stop, to turn around, to leave you alone. But they didn't listen, not because they didn't understand the message, but because they refused to believe the consequences would actually touch them. They thought they were untouchable. They thought their charm, their status, their secrecy, or their rituals would protect them. But pride made them deaf. Jealousy made them blind. And entitlement made them reckless. So they kept going, kept lying, kept manipulating, kept trying to sabotage what was never theirs to control. Every warning was a chance to escape the fallout, and every time they chose destruction in disguise. They even had dreams that left them sweating, dreams where they were being chased, judged, or watched. Faces of people they wronged, especially yours, kept showing up. But instead of waking up and seeking truth, they brushed it off as just a bad night. Some even got direct messages from spiritual people in their life. A random stranger in a store, a friend with a prophetic nudge, even a child saying something unsettling. Still, they ignored it. They laughed, rolled their eyes, shrugged it off. Now they're in a place where nothing and no one can stop what's unfolding. Not because there's no mercy, but because they trampled on mercy too many times. You were the final warning. What they did to you tipped the scale. And the sickness they carry now, it's not some freak illness, it's the fruit of rebellion. They planted seeds in dark soil and watered them with arrogance. And now the harvest has come. This isn't karma, this is consequence. Divine, direct, and overdue. They were told. Heaven made it plain, but ego made them ignore it. And now they're paying for what they swore they'd never answer for. Number 13. They mocked your healing season, and now they're desperate for one. They used to roll their eyes when you talked about healing. You cried in silence, and they called you dramatic. You pulled back to protect your peace, and they called you antisocial. You were grieving losses, processing trauma, learning boundaries, and they mocked every bit of it. To them, your healing season was weakness. Your tears were embarrassing. Your silence was a phase. Your self-work was something to be ridiculed. Behind your back, and sometimes even to your face, they laughed at the idea that you were finding yourself or getting better. Because in their minds, pain was only valid if it belonged to them. But here's the twist. While you were healing, they were decaying on the inside. You were breaking open to rebuild. They were staying sealed up and rotten. They mistook your brokenness for defeat. They didn't realize you were in divine surgery. The breaking was making room for glory. And now, the roles are reversed, and brutally so. Now, they're the ones unraveling. But their unraveling isn't sacred, it's chaotic. They're desperate for answers, for relief, for something, anything, to make the pain stop. And in their panic, they're reaching for everything they once mocked. Therapy, Reiki, herbalism, spiritual cleanses, occult rituals, fasts, affirmations, grasping at all of it like it's a magic fix. But nothing is working. Not because healing isn't real, but because they're not entering it with truth. They want relief without repentance. They want breakthrough without the breakdown. And healing doesn't work that way. They're realizing too late that healing isn't weakness, it's warfare. And they weren't built for that kind of battle because they never expected to need it. They thought they'd never fall, but now they're watching their own reflection deteriorate, wondering how the one they mocked for being too emotional is the one walking in peace, power, and purpose. You took the long road to heal. They took the shortcut to destruction. And now they're crawling through the ruins of their choices, while your light is proof that restoration is real for those who never mocked the process. Number 14. They're trying to pass their sickness onto someone else spiritually. They're getting desperate now, not just for relief, but for escape. And instead of facing what they've done, they're doing what they've always done, looking for someone else to blame, someone else to carry the weight. This time, though, it's not just emotional manipulation or gossip, it's spiritual transference. In the background, in secrecy, they're engaging in energy work, rituals, and psychological games. Anything they believe might shift this sickness off their shoulders and onto someone more vulnerable. They want a spiritual scapegoat, someone innocent, someone wide-eyed and unaware, someone who, like you once were, has a soft heart and an open spirit. They think if they can find the right person to dump this sickness on, they'll be free. They might be targeting people through touch, gifts, sex, or even conversation, because spiritual transference doesn't always look supernatural. Sometimes it looks like manipulation disguised as connection. But what they don't realize is that this particular burden was sealed. It's not just a weight, it's a sentence, a contract signed in blood, not ink. This wasn't a casual mistake, it was deliberate sabotage against a divinely chosen soul, you. And when you touch something sacred with unclean hands, the consequences are permanent. What they tried to transfer was never theirs to begin with. The sickness isn't a random illness, it's the echo of the weapon they built against you, now boomeranging back at them with force. You broke free. You healed. You detached. So now their spiritual disease has nowhere to land but home. And even if they think they've succeeded in passing it off temporarily, it always returns. Curses that are assigned by consequence, not by spell, don't just stick to flesh, they're tied to deeds. You can't transfer what you were destined to carry. They're discovering that too late. Every attempt to shift the burden only multiplies it, like trying to throw a boomerang and getting hit twice as hard on the return. The same way they once played with your spirit like it was disposable, they're now watching their own reflection twist. And this time there's no scapegoat, no proxy, no innocent to absorb what was never meant to be passed on. Just them and the curse they birthed with their own hands. The curse they carry can't be reversed by manipulation, only by truth. And truth is the one thing they've spent their whole life avoiding. You see, chosen one, this was never just about you. It was about what you carry. Your light exposes everything fake. Your resilience humbles everything prideful. And your protection offends every spirit that thought it could break you. What they didn't understand is that attacking you wasn't just an act of cruelty, it was a direct challenge to divine authority. And heaven doesn't take those lightly. They touched something sacred when they touched you, and now what they launched in secret is destroying them in silence. While you rise in peace, they're crumbling in confusion. While you sleep with clarity, they wrestle with shadows. And while you've moved on with grace, they're trapped in a prison of their own making, haunted by guilt, consumed by sickness, tormented by what they refuse to admit. They're watching your healing unfold while their own bodies betray them. They're watching doors open for you that they tried to shut. They mocked your process. Now they'd trade everything to get back what they once laughed at. But time has spoken, and justice is not delayed. Let this be your reminder. You never needed revenge. Your alignment was your defense. Your integrity was your shield. You didn't have to prove who you were. Your survival did that for you. You are not only protected, you are proof that no weapon formed against the chosen will prosper, and anyone bold enough to test that truth is now living out the answer. Not in a courtroom, not in the public eye, but in their own mind, body, and spirit, where no one can lie, no one can escape, and no one can pretend it isn't real. Justice doesn't always come loud. Sometimes it whispers through symptoms, speaks in dreams, and delivers its final word in silence. But when it shows up, it never misses. If this message shook something in your spirit, don't just scroll past. This is the kind of truth the world tries to silence, but we're bringing it into the light, one revelation at a time. So make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on all notifications so you never miss a word that's meant to set you free. Like this video if it spoke to you. Comment below. Your story, your survival, your voice matters here. And share this with someone who's been carrying silent pain or confusion, because sometimes one truth is all it takes to crack the chains. This isn't just content. It's confirmation. This isn't just a video. It's spiritual warfare wrapped in truth. And you're not watching by accident. You were meant to be here. Stay covered, stay bold, and I'll see you in the next one. God bless you.